Hello, I am Kiara. This is Marvels and Mysteries channel. Today we bring an episode of deep social representation because the traumatic enigmas of our human journey must never be forgotten. New generations need to be clearly aware of the absurdities caused by madness, greed, and the will of rulers who do not think of humanity, only of imposing their power. The Holocaust was not an accident. It was the planned consequence of an ideology of hatred that promised greatness but delivered destruction. Germany, wounded after the First World War, plunged into crisis and humiliation and found in Adolf Hitler and Nazism the promise of redemption. But that promise was poisoned, built on racial superiority, exclusion, the persecution of minorities, and the cowardly belief that some lives mattered more than others. It was in this poisoned soil that an Austrian madman, murderer, and coward found echo among equally cowardly accomplices. Laws were written to strip people of rights, neighbors were turned into informants, businesses profited from the persecution, and propaganda taught that killing could seem normal. Before gas chambers came lists, stamps, and bureaucratic orders. The horror began on paper, and that same regime dragged Germany and the whole world into a Second World War. People believed false promises of prosperity and national pride. But the result was the ruin of many countries, the destruction of historic cities, and more than 70 million dead across the planet. A nation of progress, culture, and science was placed in the hands of a madman, and the price paid was incalculable. When the plan was ready, the machinery of death followed. Mass deportations, overcrowded trains, concentration and extermination camps, gas chambers, crematoria, children ripped from their mothers' arms, families torn apart forever, entire communities erased. The Nazi machine operated with industrial precision, and it was fueled not only by ideology, but also by the silence and indifference of millions who accepted it, benefited from it, or looked away. But the Holocaust also left voices. Voices of survivors who endured to tell their stories. Letters, diaries, and testimonies that today stand as living proof against any denial. The records from the Nuremberg trials make clear the scale of the crime. The deliberate extermination of millions of Jews, Romani people, political prisoners, people with disabilities, and homosexuals. Everyone branded undesirable by the regime. The Holocaust is proof of how far madness can go when leaders, intoxicated by arrogance and greed, turn human beings into numbers. The message is clear. Criminal regimes and ideologies of hate cannot be forgotten or relativized. To the new generations, this episode is a warning. It is not enough to learn dates and names. You must recognize the signs of authoritarianism, exclusion, and dehumanization. You must speak up. Never again. Here at Marvels and Mysteries, we do not merely tell stories, we preserve memory. For societies to become better, we must confront the traumas of our human journey. We must look at the past and acknowledge that each act of silence, each indifference, contributes to horror. I say without hesitation, Hitler was a coward who dragged other cowards into crime. Nazism was a regime of murderers, and the world must always remember that. If this episode moved you, share it. Subscribe to Marvels and Mysteries, ring the bell for notifications, and answer in the comments. Which document or testimony do you consider most important for future generations to study? Because history can be manipulated, but memory, if kept alive, becomes a shield against the repetition of barbarity. This is a testimony never to be forgotten.